Hey everybody, welcome back to the REtipster podcast. I'm Seth Williams, and today I'm talking with TJ Visiodei, the founder and CEO of Axe Decentralized Real Estate. So I first heard TJ speak earlier this year at a mastermind event, and I remember walking away thinking, this guy isn't just developing land, he's trying to rethink what community even looks like. And most land developers are selling lots, but TJ seems to be building something much bigger, large rural communities where families can own acreage, become more self-sufficient, know their neighbors, and create a lifestyle that's very different from what most of us experience in modern suburbia. And beyond the real estate side of it, TJ also has a very unique philosophy about business, leadership, faith, and building companies with purpose. Some of the things he shared really stuck with me, and I've wanted to unpack them ever since I first heard him talk about it. So today we're going to walk through how this model actually works, where the opportunities come from, how the economics make sense, and what he's learned building it, and the bigger vision that's driving it all. So, TJ, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, thank you so much. I actually remember listening to REtipster as I was building things with Axe. And so it's actually my pleasure. It's a joy to be out here. And thank you so much for having me.
TJ, tell me, what exactly is Axe? And this is spelled A-C-T-S, correct?
Yes.
So if somebody asks you, what is this? What are you talking about here, TJ? What do you tell them?
So Axe is it's spelled A-C-T-S, just like the book of Acts from the Bible. And so to really understand what we do, let's just go back. Let's just look at the fundamental problem here. There are not just a few. I mean, on Instagram alone, we have over 450,000, but across the country, there are millions of people and families that look at their lifestyle and feel like they're kind of renting out everything in their lifestyle. So they might be a homeowner. They live on a quarter, maybe a half acre. Great, they own it. But then everything else they rent out. So they're renting out their water to the public utilities grid. They're renting out their food to the grocery store. They're renting out their electricity to the electricity plant, right? Almost every aspect of their lives is fundamentally controlled by some central processing system. Centralized education, centralized mainstream media, centralized communications on politics, all these things. And people are fed up with it, Seth. They're fed up. They have something, they have a calling in their heart. Something happens that makes their heart beat and sing. And it's kind of like this whisper, but it turns into an obsession. And this whisper starts out with, go buy land. Go buy land. Start a farm, grow your own food, have something for your family, be independent, go off grid, decentralize, bring your family in. And it feels like just a wish and a whisper, but then it just grows in more and more people. So you have millions of people that feel this deep in their heart, but they're smacked against the reality that our society has not given them the mental infrastructure necessary, the teaching, the wisdom, the mindset necessary to make that transition. If we look at it in the past, when America was formed, pretty much 99% of people had some form of farming unless they were literally a slave or they literally were a debtor that did not own anything. Most people grew their own food. You go to the early 1900s, in America as a whole, it was 60% of America grew their own food. In rural locations, 90% of the United States of America grew their own food. About 125 years later, 2026, it's less than 1% of the United States of America that grows their own food. So I'm talking about people that have a mindset that says, you know what, we're going to do things a little bit differently. These are people, they want to homeschool their children. They want to have a multi-generational household, them and their parents and their kids and their grandkids all living together. They want to home birth. They want to grow their own food. They want to live fully off grid. And they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the experience, the skills necessary to do it. So what do? Well, we set up the necessary pieces for people to make it across that transition. What that looks like, what that sounds like is, number one, buying your own land. Typically, I would say that starts with no less than 5 acres. That's controversial. There's plenty of people who say, no, you can do stuff with 5 acres, but they're kind of lying to you. 5 acres of land or more. We sell 5 to 15 acre parcels of land. Number 2, being able to grow enough food to actually feed your family. And the answer for how much food that needs to feed a family of 4 people is just around 800 pounds of food. So being able to have a farm that grows 800 pounds of meat, that's step 2. Step 3, having a consistent way to process that meat so you can actually eat it. Step 4, being able to install your own home. Step 5, with off-grid utilities, wells, solar, septic units, and maybe even gas as well, and a backup generator. And lastly, being able to do it in a way where you can, if you're transition over to the land, maybe as a second home that then becomes your retirement home where you have your as your forever home. So being able to make that transition over for people by typically either having some type of cabin or some type of retreat on it. And lastly, doing all of that, but not in an isolated way. I've met people, they've hit every point. They own their land, they grow their food, they process their food, they have their home, they have off-grid utilities, they have their own cabins, but guess what? They're isolated. They don't have, step 7, community, that actual like-minded community of people who share the same values that they can trust in a time of crisis, they can spend time with. So what we do at Axe Decentralized Real Estate is we serve those people who want that. And we serve them 2 ways, either through knowledge or through physical, done for you and done with you services. In terms of knowledge, we have an online school community. People can go in and I share the techniques that I've used to acquire $4 million, $8 million, $13 million properties so that people can buy their own $250,000, $450,000 parcels if they want, or like be able to do it on their own, basically. I also go and we buy 500, 1,500 acre properties, divide them into 5 to 15 acre parcels of land. People buy the individual parcels of land. They hold it in their name, in their family trust, in their LLC, whatever else there is that they want. And we have done for you services that install an operational farm for them, install the actual home for them, install the off-grid utilities for them. And we're even willing to partner with people if they want cabin management and cabin rental services. We'll consult with them on all of that. So it really literally is a completed solution. Here's all the information you need. Here's the exact team, the exact systems, and the exact implementation you need by experts so that this very scary process becomes push button simple.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Appreciate the overview on that. So a lot to unpack there. One of the first things you were talking about there is, it sounds like the goal is to get away from renting everything in your life, whether it's utilities or whatever it might be. So are people looking to get away from that because they want to eliminate costs, or is it more about like independence? Like, I just don't want to have to rely on the government or some third-party entity to survive.
That's a great question. I would absolutely say that it is more for the independence and freedom than it is the costs. The costs are at best icing on the cake. This is really neat. Like, this is pretty cool that you get to have this on the cost side of things. But one of the things that I am deeply emphasizing for everybody listening right now, the reality is that even though we offer school community with information, we offer done for you and done with you services to make it as easy as possible, and we have lowered the barrier, the truth of the matter, Seth, is that this is outrageously difficult. And a person's reasoning for why has to be very, very deep, very, very, very deep. And cost savings is not enough for why I would recommend someone go through this. It is just not worth it on the cost savings analysis. Although it's a nice icing on the cake. The deeper reasons why are, the number one reason, I don't ask this of people. I don't say like, did God send you? I don't do that. But customers, families will go to me and I'll be like, why do you want to move off grid? They will literally say, because God has put it in my heart. That's the first thing that will happen. They'll feel it very deeply. It's like a thing that just comes up. Number 2, it's for their children. Almost every single family that we have, even if they don't have children, we'll have single women, we'll have single men come out. They want to buy with us. They're saying, I'm doing this for my children. I'm planting a tree now, knowing that over the next 25, 50 years, it's going to be inherited by my children, and I cannot wait for them to have it. And then the last piece is the freedom of creativity, freedom of time, freedom of association with other people that they really have so much in common with. That is what really motivates them when they go through the difficulties of trying to set this up, because it's a very alternative lifestyle, very alternative.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say God puts it in people's hearts to live off grid. Is there something like biblical about that? Or is it just some other random value that faith-centered people tend to have in common for some reason? Like, why do you think that even comes up?
I go very hard on it is absolutely part of what is included in the Bible. And quite literally, I refer to Genesis 1, like Genesis 1 and 2. If you can just bear with me for a second and imagine that imagine the Bible as a sales letter, like a long form sales letter. You would ask well, what is the purpose of this sales letter? Well, this purpose is for the father calling to his children to come back to him, to go away from associating with all these false idols, all these false gods in our life, like money, these false gods, like just, pride or fame and all this other stuff. He's calling his children back and he's saying, I have an inheritance for you. And when I read the Bible, I look at Genesis 1. The reason the Bible goes very far out of its way in the first chapter to talk about how God made the earth, he made the heavens and the earth, he made the animals according to his kind. It even goes out of its way, even the livestock, right? Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, to take dominion over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, over the livestock, and over the earth itself. It says it 2 times over. Then we have the formation of man, and the first words to man is, be fruitful and multiply. And we're told to go out to fill the earth and subdue it, to take care of all these livestock. In Genesis 2, it is written that man was placed in the garden to cultivate and keep it. And so this is an image of what the perfect lifestyle looks like. If we were to ask, well, what does the perfect situation, the perfect habitat for a human look like? If a bird's natural habitat is to be in the air, if a fish's natural habitat is to be in the water, I stake the claim that man's natural habitat looks like, feels like the Garden of Eden. And we are called to each cultivate our own Garden of Eden, and that in doing so, we can link together, we can go through challenges, we can be fruitful, we can multiply, we can learn more about him, and we can really provide and protect for so many other people. If we go to the book of Acts, what do? They have the conversion, the 3,000, the book of Acts. What do they immediately go do? They go and they acquire land. That's one of the first things that the early church actually did. They acquire land. And it was very important for them to acquire land and to go on and forth farming, actually growing things on their own. So that's why I see it as so intimately tied to faith.
One of the questions I had later on, but I'll just get into it now. So it sounds like there is a certain avatar or profile of person who would be attracted to this kind of opportunity to buy land, develop their own farm, that kind of thing. It seems like one common thread is that they have some kind of faith in something, whether it's the Bible or possibly something else. I don't know, but it does make me wonder, what kind of person does not belong in this kind of community? Like, if I'm an atheist, should I not sign up for this? Would I not be allowed to? Or are there certain rules where it's like, hey, if you don't want to farm, then this probably isn't the thing for you? Help me understand the box of who should or shouldn't sign up for this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. So to be super clear, we never ask, and we personally never discriminate. It just doesn't come up what a person's faith is. As they come, they visit us and they're going looking at land. There is no part where we go, hey, so are you Christian? Are you not Christian? Da, da, da. If you want to know what happens, actually, honestly, with the atheists, we never turn away. But atheists will go, they'll just automatically dismiss us, is what will classically. I'll make a video and it'll just post after post, I always wanted this, but never, because you guys have Christian values. And I'll be like, okay, but nobody, that's That's like being like, oh, I don't want to eat at Chick-fil-A because they're closed on Sundays and they have Christian values too. Like, okay, but like Chick-fil-A is never going to ask you. They're just going to ask you, what meal do you want to order? At the end of the day, we do have consistently, we have so many people that have so many different interesting stories. We don't find people of a specific denomination of Christian that come out there. Although I will say that just broad topic, what we find is you have these very intelligent entrepreneurial individuals. So we typically have serial entrepreneurs that have a 6-figure to 7-figure portfolio in gold, crypto, silver, or real estate. So the serial entrepreneurs, they have gold, they have crypto, they have silver, they have real estate. They will make reference to the fact that the economy is largely collapsing. They know what the USdebtclock.org is. Like, they're very aware of, hey, wait a minute, fiat is going to zero. We have to make investments out of fiat, right? That's what will be going on in their mind. And so if you just think about it logically, like if someone knows fiat currency is going to zero, then they're also thinking to themselves like society itself is going to go to zero too. And so it's a natural extension. Why are you investing in the gold, silver, crypto, and real estate? Why do you have multiple businesses? So that I can take that money and I can be able to buy something to protect my family in the case of a national emergency, vis-a-vis a blackout event, coronavirus event, government shutdown event, war event, any one of these unforeseen black swan events that may happen. So we've had Jewish people that say they relate to us more than their own communities because when you had COVID, they couldn't relate to other people in their own synagogues because people were ratting on the children playing basketball on the courts of the synagogue and they didn't have a mask on. And they were like, man, like I relate to you guys way more than I do with these guys. We've had Muslims that have been like, yeah, I relate to you guys more than I do my own Muslim community because the Muslims I know, they're just doctors, they're lawyers that are hanging out and in regular on-grid society. We've had people who've had very checkered pasts, that have been yoga teachers, ayahuasca teachers, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, what unifies all of us is this deep, deep, deep need. It's this fire that is deep inside, and this fire burns, and it burns them to know that they can't meet the requirements of that fire. That fire is, I must protect and provide for my family in the long term by owning my own resources. Through hell or high water, I have to do it. And they feel frustrated by the fact that they can't do it. But they find us and they're like, dude, this is a no-brainer. You've actually figured it all out. Let's move forward. Let's go. That's their mindset.
Do you make people go through some kind of application process where like, you better say yes to these things? Or is it like, no, literally anybody can do this. Like if you're a criminal, if you just got out of prison, like if this problem, that problem, we don't care. If you got the money, you're in. How do you make sure the right people get into these communities and there's not like conflict that's created?
So we do have deed restrictions. And in our deed restrictions, the people that we do ask to not join us include the following. Number one, sex offenders. So registered sex offenders, we ask to not join. It's simply a disclosure matter. So just, hey, please, you're not going to be able to purchase with us. This is intended for our children to be able to enjoy themselves. And we're asking no to those members who are sex offenders. We also have grace for and forgive if someone has a criminal background, but the considerations are we talking about violent criminals? We're talking about reformation, and we're talking about time. So if someone comes to us, they're 60 years old, and when they were 20 years old, they had a violent crime, that's not really going to be an issue. Someone who has just gotten out for a very violent crime, federal prison, like was a cocaine dealer, that's going to be a big issue. The other people that we asked to disclose, and that's really important, is bad actors. So there's a lot of examples of bad actors. We have actually seen, we've actually gone through different forms of opposition of it. These are people who actively would like to go against the traditions, the morals, the values that are clearly laid out in the deed restrictions. Okay. So like if you're there and it's like, okay, I want to set up a bar and a strip joint. We're not gonna be able to work together. If you're there and you want to spray Monsanto chemicals, you want to put glyphosates in the grasses, this is not the place to spray glyphosates in the grasses. Go somewhere else for that. If you want to create a junkyard, this is not the place to create a junkyard. Other things that we ask for people who to not have adultery, so not sleep with your neighbor's wife. This is an important reason why. It's not because I actually care about your personal relationships, but because the fastest way to destroy a community is through adultery. What leads to awful sex cult activities is adultery. It's adultery. I've seen it happen to other people, and it's awful to see a community destroy itself because of adultery. So we ask, hey, this is not the place for that. And lastly, bad actors such as, I know this sounds conspiratorial. This is REtipster is not really a conspiracy podcast, but government agents and secret society members. I know that might sound crazy to some people, but we do ask for the disclosure if a person is working for a 3-letter agency or if they are a member of a secret society and that they have passed with oaths to those secret societies. We have actually seen many examples, believe it or not, of people actively wanting to go against our community, actively writing slander, libel, all these different things, and trying to hide those things. So that's why we do ask for that disclosure.
Gotcha. Now, when we say the word community, what does that actually mean to you? Like, what if somebody moves into one of these things and like, they don't really want to talk to the neighbors. They kind of just want to be left alone. Like, is that community? Does community mean like we all have to get around together and sing Kumbaya? Or is it like, no, we're actually kind of just living in the same development and that makes it a community? Like, how is that defined to you?
That's a really good question. So first off, we acquire these properties. There will be 500 up to about 1,500 acres. Let's go with Little G Ranch, for example, for this real life example. And you're going to hear it and you're like, wow, okay, that is community. We're talking about 492 acres, 40 10-acre parcels. Most of the people, they're exactly as I just described. They're serial entrepreneurs. They want this for their family. That's why they purchased. We have only started the first builds, the first home builds over at Little G Ranch. About 25% of the people who bought at Little G live here in Texas, nearby the Houston area. So they just live in their normal suburban homes and they're getting ready and they're building over on their land, their parcels. So they just kind of hang out, like they're physically away from their land often, right? But when they're going and hanging out and going to like an event, I'll see them like call each other up and be like, hey, like, want to come out with me? And they'll just go out and hang out, okay? So on the one hand, they're neighbors. On the other hand, they're like living on their main home that is 100 miles away, separated by like 20, 30 miles. And they'll just call each other up like, hey, like we're going to this event, like you want to go? Like we're going to go watch a Houston Astros game, something like that, right? You also have others who they live in Chicago, they live in Tennessee, they live in Georgia, they live in California, okay? So they're neighbors, and yet they're spread out across the country based on these second homes, right? Now, we have no forced events. There's no like, you must attend there's no like church events that you have to join or anything like that, like nothing like that. We have Zoom calls that will be like, hey, let's talk about setting things up for a 4th of July event. Or like, hey, let's talk about developments and where we want to take the ranching and what we're thinking about for that. But people own their stuff outright and it's completely voluntary, whether you show up to a meeting or don't show up a meeting. Like, if you don't want to go, just don't go, just don't go. Now, here's a last example of real community, what it actually means. It's been about 8 weeks now since my son passed away. He passed away in a very sudden accident in my own driveway here in my house down here in Montgomery, Texas. Again, it was a freak accident, but it was my neighbors, right? And this is why I don't say customers, right? This is why I don't treat it as like I'm just a normal landowner. They're actually my neighbors. They're actually my friends. when my son had passed away, first off, my next door neighbor, he was there with me at the hospital that very same day. After that, some of the other neighbors, they came and they cooked food for us, for me and my wife, while we were in that situation. I actually built the casket for my son and we got it surveyed. That was also a community there. To have the local surveyors, they actually did it pro bono, and the funeral service, the funeral home, they actually did that pro bono for my son because he was so young. They just did it out of their hearts, and they coordinated that. That's being a neighbor right there. And then when we had the funeral, people flew down, people drove down to be there at the funeral and pay their respects and pay their wishes. These people from across the country, from the north, the south, the east, the west, all being there for this event and being there for me. That is way different from your normal seller-buyer relationship. It's way different from just a, isolated relationship where you don't really know your neighbors. They were there for me in that time. And that's what I believe having a real community actually is. It's the people you can count on in times of crisis. And that's what you get when you're part of this community.
That's terrible. I'm very sorry to hear about that. That is interesting, though, the built-in support system you have as a result of this community you've built. I mean, what does that mean to you to have those kinds of relationships that are there in times of crisis in the recovery process? Like, does it make a big difference? I mean, I realize this kind of thing, you don't really recover from this. Like, it probably sticks with you forever. But like, is it like a healing process to have those people around you? Or I don't know, what does that mean to you?
It's a massive difference and you can't put a price on it. And that's what I meant by earlier when I was like, yeah, like people will try to do this stuff on their own. But like, if you're missing that seventh element, like there's no amount of money that you can possibly pay for it. The things that get written in, the things that I get to see every day, the messages, it allows me to process these things much deeper compared to if I was just in a standard neighborhood. Nobody knows me. I don't talk to these other guys. I don't talk to these other neighbors. Like it's categorically different, And unfortunately in our society, we've kind of gotten away from it. We've kind of forgotten about it. We have neighbors, but they're more or less just acquaintances most of the time. Like, oh, I just kind of know this person. But it's so different when you have an entire neighborhood of people where every single person, you could go and have a deep talk conversation with them without involving any alcohol whatsoever. Like you can have a conversation that spans for several hours that covers the Bible to gold, gold speculation, to sports, to marriage psychology, and to what's going on in politics, all in 2 or 3 hours, and flow right then and there with each other, not worrying about like, do you actually understand? Are you picking up on what I'm saying? It's really, really healing. Most of our families, we talked about that avatar. One factoid about this avatar is that I'll talk to them and they'll be like, oh, I'm an introvert. And I'll be like, are you really? Because when I talk to them, out comes the extroversion and they'll be able to talk for like hours on end with just beautiful conversation. So it's not really that a lot of these people are actually introverted. They're extroverted, but they become introverts because they feel like fish out of the water. They feel like aliens in normal society, but this is a place where they don't feel so much like aliens.
It's funny you said that. I actually know several people who tell me they're introverts, and like, I don't believe them. Like, I've never seen them ever exhibit introverted behavior patterns. I'm an introvert. I got to kind of work at it sometimes, but I don't know. I think you're spot on. Like, some people aren't really introverts at all. You just got to like get on the right topic or get them in the right environment, that kind of thing. So it does make me wonder, why do you think some people kind of clam up and just turn away from community? It's almost like they want to be an island and be alone. Is it because it costs too much to invest into these relationships, or is it just easier to not have to deal with people? You don't strike me as one of those people. I'm just curious your take on it. Like, why doesn't everybody gravitate towards this?
That's a great question. So there's a few different elements to it. I think the first part is, I think the majority of it is people feeling that they have to put a mask on. I think it's the difficulty of putting on a mask. That right there, I mean, it's just a lot of energy expended, right? You can't say the things you want to say. You can't dream the dreams you want to dream. You kind of hold back. You don't share those things. Like, let's just think about just the concept of homesteading itself, right? Okay, so you have these people who they now have all these neighbors who themselves have struck out to go and like buy their land, start their farm, start their homestead, right? They can freely talk about it. But then amongst their own family, they can't even talk about these dreams. Somebody is going to go, "You're so stupid. You can't do that. Who's going to listen to you? Who cares about you?" And so that expends so much energy. I'm sure you might have felt it. It's a little bit, the same question is a little bit like, I'm sure when you first started REtipster, like the literal like beginnings of REtipster, it's that feeling of like, why am I doing this? Like, is anybody going to care? Like, am
I
I
kept
going
it a
to
secret from a lot of people in my life. I would not tell them about it because I have the same fear. Thought they were going to laugh at me, and some people kind of did. They're like, "Oh, that's cute. You think you can do that, Seth? Just keep dreaming, whatever you want." So I totally hear you.
Exactly. And so like if I put you in a room with a bunch of podcasters, you could probably be like just like as a and you could talk about things like, "Yeah, man, it's sometimes so difficult to coordinate these next guests. And, it really can't. Sometimes I think about when I flubbed a line one time, and you ever feel that way of you flub a line and now you're thinking about it in the back of your mind the whole rest of the podcast, when even though I can just edit it, man, like, that's hard. It just feels good to have those other people who they vibe, they connect with. And it's just like, wow, you're on the same wavelength as me. And so we all kind of feel that, and we all just want to be on that same wavelength with others. So I believe that that's 90% of what happens. Then the next 9% is going to be that you have people having negative thoughts of busyness. I'm just focused on my own thing. I've got my own crises. I've got my own things, and I just don't have time. I can't make it out there. I can't have this. And we find that very consistently, like we're all going through some really, really awful stuff. And I try to never have a contest with people with who's going through the worst stuff. Like I'm sure, Seth, you're going through stuff that nobody hears about on this podcast. I'm sure people listening to this on this podcast, like they have days that they just want to give up, that it's hard to even get out of bed. They just feel angry. They feel upset. Where is God? Where are you? How are we making it through this? And we get in this. And so we pass time and we don't even realize how much time has passed. So it's not that a person's literally like, I want to isolate myself, but it is the case that they get so embroiled in their day-to-day struggles and crises and hardships and frustrations and setbacks and upsets that 6 months passes by and you haven't even just gotten connected with each other. Not because you said, I'm consciously going to go out of my way, forget this person, I don't want to talk to them, but it's just like, dude, I'm going through it right now. And I don't even, it's hard for me to even talk to other people. And so that kind of holds a lot of people back.
So I want to pivot a little bit, not a big pivot, but just slightly. So far, we've been talking about just sort of higher level concepts of like what kind of person does this and all this. But I want to sort of get into like the actual details of like how this business model even works, because you're doing something different than just about anybody I've ever met. I know it's plenty of land developers who like subdivide and do all this stuff, but nobody who's going as specific and as far as you have gone multiple times now. So just a lot of mechanical questions on like how this all comes together.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. And one of the questions was just, how are people actually discovering this and deciding to buy? Like, are you paying for ads, or is this all just organic discovery through Instagram? Or because it sounds like, and maybe the social media algorithm helps you in this way because it kind of shows people things that they're already interested in. But how do these people who are in the right alignment with this product actually find you and say, sign me up, here's my money?
That's a great question. So the number one way is through social media and podcasting. That's the answer. Organic social media and podcasting, primarily through Instagram. So Instagram, we have videos. In the last 90 days, we've hit 8.2 million views organically on Instagram. Just sharing our content. Nothing else, just sharing the content, sharing our story, talking about what's going on. I made a post talking about the spiritual warfare we're going through, right? And I talked about how we're going after this 922 acre property over in Tennessee. And the opposition is tied to the KKK. and that we've had several different people have unexplicable, weird, strange deaths, like hospitalizations, deaths, bumps, all this other stuff, like out of 11 families. That video, I posted it. It was just an iPhone video, not high production whatsoever, edited in Instagram edits. That video got, at this point, it's got to be over 185,000 views and got, over 3,000 people just commenting in to the video, right? Because they feel it and they share it. So when we go viral, it's often people having a conversation with their friends and loved ones, seeing our content and being like, wow, you've entered into my conversation. This really is exactly what we were looking for and what we were talking about. Then you do have podcasts. Like, that's why I said earlier, I was like, yeah, highest and best usage of my time as CEO, be here on this podcast. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you about these things, because there's a whole new audience of people that may have thought of this, but they've never really known, wow, this is a possibility. It's like, wow, like all of a sudden I can do this thing that I've always thought of. Recently, we were on the Russell Brand podcast. Here we are on REtipster. Again, I literally wrote you down as like, I know in the future at some point I will get onto blank, but like I literally wrote down different podcasts knowing we will at one point be on there.
Yeah.
And so
who is it? Was it me or Russell Brand at the top? Who is ahead of the other person? That's what I want to know.
So admittedly, Russell Brand was one of the top. If you want to know top of the top, I want to speak into existence. Joe Rogan podcast is like,
yeah, I understand that.
I think Joe Rogan and I think we would have a great conversation as well.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You are there. You were there on our list. I assure you. I could go back to the past, but putting out the messaging and being very clear. There's an idea that I called the magnet. So the concept of the magnet is not a lead magnet, okay? Because that's a separate marketing concept. What instead I'm saying for the magnet is that you want to be an attractive force based on your values. So people will look at us and they'll kind of be trying to figure out like, man, like what's the secret behind this guy? Like, this is so hyper specific. What a niche audience. And they'll think that me speaking to the values of this niche audience is a detriment, when the reality is it is by far my strongest weapon. Because what happens is this is the reality of how markets work. Instead of thinking of markets as industries, right? Like real estate industry, right? And people talking to a generalized audience, that is the mistake people will make, right? So for people listening to REtipster, I'm sure you're flipping a house, or you're getting for some type of multifamily unit, or some type of STR, or some type of BRRRR, some type of thing on that, right? If you understand this fact of markets, it's going to change your life. So the reality of markets is to think of individuals who have a list in their heads, okay? Now, what this list in their heads represents is solutions to their heart of heart desires in their heads. And what they're going to have is they're going to have a list of those solutions, including actions and people, in order of what is the most efficient, the path of least resistance for them to solve that problem. Okay? So when you can make it that you can speak to the values of a person who has that list in their head and show them that you are definitively the number one option to solve that problem based on the list of options they have in their head, then you can really speak to those people. You can really get at them. Because if you can show them, I know the desire that you have more than you might otherwise know the desire you have in your own head. Like I can show you your dream more than you even realized you had in that dream. Part one. That's like shocking. It's an intimacy that goes into a person's ears, and it goes in the ears, through the head, to the heart, to the gut, to the balls. And it's just like, wow, like I feel seen. I feel heard, like my goodness. Then when you can show them, and I know the list you have in your head, and let me show you why the current top 5 options you have in your head about how you're going to solve them. Let me show you why you are going to get nowhere with those options. Not only are they a bad option, worse than anything, before we even talk about my own thing, you are not going to ever come close to the thing you wanted to do. And here's why you need to do that thing. Okay. You need to take action on it now and look at this secret to what is actually possible to be able to solve that problem over here. Here, let me just show you this overall, like you didn't even realize this path was possible here and why this path is objectively better than all the other options you had in your head. Now that I've done that, here's exactly what I built out for you. Here's the contingency plan. Here's all the monsters we've already defeated. Here's all these monsters you didn't even know existed. Here's how we've defeated them. Here's all these facets. I've already packaged the whole thing up for you. And if you're ready, join me and join this movement of people that are already taking action on the things you wanted to do. If you can show that to people and speak to them in a unique fashion, that's going to really make them go crazy. So for example, I've made active decisions that are insane compared to others, right? So for example, our first home build, it was a struggle. I paid so much money for staffing and all this payroll for our first home build, just paying for the GCs on this, right? Now, get this, on our first home build, we were struggling with the approvals on a construction loan to fund on that build. Everybody's watching me. We've got hundreds of thousands of people on Instagram wondering when you're going to finally have that first home build. Okay. This is $1 million home build. So if I can just get this closed, I'm going to make $1 million on this. Okay. The lenders, the financiers, they say, okay, we're all tip top shape on all this other stuff, except for one thing. In your deed restrictions, you make mention of Jesus and God, and you even have a deed restriction about adultery. Our underwriters don't feel comfortable with that. So if you can sign this affidavit, removing that from the deed restrictions, we can close this deal. You have your $1 million. And we said no. We said no to that. When it was dangling, the fame and the money right in front of my face, all I had to do was just remove it, just deny Jesus, deny God, deny this issue, and just be okay with it. You could say that is the stupidest decision you've ever made. Are you freaking kidding me? You've been paying payroll. I probably paid $300,000 of payroll on Axons at that point, just up to that point. Like, you could get the money in right now. It's going to accelerate you. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to care. I could have done that. But I believe strongly that there are people that will hear that, and instead of getting an ick, like, ugh, like they got adultery in the deed, ugh, like that's so restrictive. That's so gross. That must be a cult for saying something like that. There's other people that are going to listen. They're going to be like, dude, the fact that he actually just went out of his way to say that, I know that's the person I want to work with. I know that's the mindset I want to be with. And that's what creates that attractive force. If you can do that correctly, why this is so important is because you can, one, attract the right customers that are so amazing that, as I said, they're not even customers. They become just good friends, which it's way easier to go through just talking to a friend than is going through, here's my sales script and here's my, 3-point funnel, blah, 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 blah. Like, if you think about a lot of decisions you make, if your own best friend is just like, hey, Seth, like, just go to this restaurant. Trust me, it's like the best food you've ever had. He doesn't have to sell you through that process. He's just like, I care about you. This is a good thing for you. Just go try it. That feeling, you can't really replace or remodel that feeling. You just have to be about it in your value. So it's there for your customers. It's there when you're doing negotiations. So we're closing on this $8.3 million. And Seth, I don't got no $8.3 million, right? But we're able to negotiate seller financing, not because some type of hardball. I didn't go to the seller, and get some of the, seller financing this through some type of like, well, according to this contract, or like, hey, according to the market prices, I've found that this is good. None of that. But because he's like, dude, I like you. I respect you. And I want to do this. I could have a beer with you. And I like that. Same thing with employees. We've gone through horrible stuff. The last 8 weeks have been the hardest time we have ever had in this company ever. We had 5 closings, more than $1 million of closings just got moved out, delayed. That made a major delay on every single process, payroll, loans, everything. It was just devastating, right? Why do people stick with us? Because of those values, because of that mission, that vision, those unspeakable kind of moments where it's just like, dude, this is real and this is meaningful and this is purposeful. And you'll have people who say, instead of, this is a hardship, I'm not going to get paid, we got a delay in payroll, forget this, I'm out of here. You have them say, you know what? I'm with you. I'm riding with you. Let's get this done. I see the vision. In fact, I know that this is the hardship because I know we're about to bounce off. That's a massive difference. So for anybody listening, any of your projects, if you can ask, what is the purpose, the meaning, the value of your apartment, your multifamily, your short-term rental? If you have it there in your values for your customers, for your investors, and for your employees, it makes a massive difference beyond any standard economic value, beyond any strategy you could ever possibly come up with.
Yeah, that's actually a really important point you're getting on. Being a company that has values at all that you're willing to talk about. There's a statistic, I heard about this like 10 years ago now, but I just looked it up to verify it's still accurate. But when you compare the average Burger King to the average McDonald's to the average Chick-fil-A, Burger King, the average one makes about 1.7 million a year. McDonald's is about 4 million a year. The average Chick-fil-A makes about $9.3 million a year. And
I did not know that. Wow.
And they're closed on Sundays, whereas the other two are not. I mean, think of the opportunity cost. What if they were open all during the week? And
exactly.
Does Chick-fil-A have chicken that's just like so much better than anything else? Maybe, but like, is that really the reason? Or is it because it's a company that actually stands for something and everybody knows it? And even if you don't like what they stand for, they still stand for something and they're not afraid to be vocal about it. So it kind of gets at what you're talking about, like being public about that and like planting your flag somewhere and the right people will find you.
It's basically the name of the game. Like if a business can be structured as the flag, like not just planting it, because what I've seen too often is I've seen businesses kind of like graft values onto the business. So you have someone that like clearly it's got nothing to do with what their values is. I'm not making fun of anybody in this, but like you might have like one time I was at like a life insurance office, right? And so they just sell life insurance, but then they kind of like grafted on what their values are. And it's like, there's not really any comparison between like what they do, what their values are. But when the business itself, right? And you'll know you're doing this right when the business, the communications, the people, the being itself stands for something so hard that it actively makes people angry. It just bothers them to no core. Like if you don't have anything that you're doing, if your apartment, your multifamily, your short-term, whatever it is you're doing, your single family, if it doesn't piss people off, you're not doing enough. Like, because there's got to be something that's so meaningful, so valuable that people are fighting for it. And it just changes everything when you have that mindset. It's invaluable. It's invaluable for your soul. It's going to give you more energy when you wake up in the morning, when you're fighting through things. Like I can do stuff and I can handle stuff that other people can't handle, other developers. Even if I handed them like the literal business model for what we do, I can get up and I can do it because I know how valuable and how meaningful and how purposeful it is. I know that I'm going to keep this when we made our first million, when we made our first 10 million, when we eventually get to 100 million, a billion. Seth, I actually believe that this market is a $1 trillion market. I literally believe that. And I'm happy to show why I believe that. But the whole way through, I will never lose my fire, ever. I've gone through the death of my son. I've gone through fights. I've gone through getting backstabbed. I've gone through getting betrayed. I deal with complaints. I deal with lenders, setbacks, upsets. I've invested millions upon millions of dollars. I've invested 8 figures just back into education, all these different things. But it's because of that fire, that purpose. It drives every single part of me. And when I get worst of the worst down in the dumps, I get to the point where I'm like, my goodness, Lord, kill me now at this point. This is crazy. I can't believe this. I will simply go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and it's like a reset. And the fire is right there, rekindled, and I'm ready to drive again until I'm basically gassed out and then just able to do it again and again and again and again. And it will never burn out. It will never, ever burn out. And according to Ecclesiastes, that is all we can ask for in this life.
So tell me, how many of these communities currently exist? Like, how many have you built so far, and how many are currently in the works, if you've got more planned?
So officially closed, and like that have started. We have 2 where it's officially closed or started. So Little G Ranch was our first one. That was 492 acres, turned into 40 10-acre parcels. We sold that out in about a year and a half or so. The way we'd done that was that we actually, by a miracle, this was an example of a miracle. I just gone in, I'd done a lot of phone calls, and we were able to get 104% hard money financing on that deal, nice. Which was just crazy. I mean, that was my first deal ever. So to have no background, no portfolio, and be able to get that on pure land, unbelievable. $4 million of pure land. We set it up where there was a 6-month interest reserve that would automatically pay for itself. And we paid off the full loan in 6 months just by selling parcels.
Dude, that's crazy. I mean, the fact that you even got a hard money lender to give you any money for land at all, like that's crazy. But the fact that you got 104% financing and all those, I mean, and you paid off in 6 months? Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess you're doing something right.
That's a miracle of God. Those types of terms are absurd terms. Then our next deal was a $12.75 million deal over in Florida. For that deal, man, it was wild. We just had one person put in a reservation. So reservations, by the way, for anybody listening, people put in reservations. That's how they say, come to my state, right? So if people put in a reservation for Florida, they're saying, come down to Florida. Well, one person put in a reservation for Florida. I put it up on Instagram stories. We had 10 more people put in reservations for Florida that same day. And we're just like, we had plans for Florida in another 2 years, but because we listened to the market demand by these pre-reservations, we're like, okay, let's move Florida ahead of the list. So in 24 hours, we go from 1 to 10 reservations. Then the next, I'm like, okay, I guess we got to find Florida. I go and I find the listing for Panoplia Ranch. It had been up for only 24 hours. It was unbelievable. It was the perfect amount of land. It was already subdivided. It was meant originally as an equestrian and organic farming community. The only reason they stopped the project was because of the 2008 financial crash. And the seller had felt by the Lord, he literally said, the Lord told me not to sell it, not to get rid of it, to find the next person who could help out with it, that would have the same vision. He kept it for 15 years, okay, and was just selling it to break even on his money. He just wanted someone to transfer it to.
That literally sounds like he was waiting for exactly you for that time and that purpose. That's crazy, man.
He really was. Okay, so then there was a competitor that was a $120 million fund, or excuse me, they had acquired $120 million of assets that year before. They had contacted them. They were in communication with them, but they want to do a full due diligence process. They want to do all this other stuff. Seth, you're gonna be like, are you kidding me right now? All right. I went to our families and I told them the situation. I said, we are taking this land. There's a competitor. They've acquired $120 million of land. My plan is I already know these laws. I already know this is a win. We are going to put in an $850,000 earnest money deposit that's going to go fully hard. Okay. And we raised it in 1 weekend with one post in our Mighty Network that was 3 minutes long. Not a webinar, not some big long sales script. 1 3-minute post in our community, $850,000. And for those crazy. Of you listening who don't know what a hard earnest money deposit is, you know, Seth's face is like, dude, are you serious right now? Like,
no, it's a valid question.
You don't get that money back. Okay. That's what that means for anybody listening. That means that's money that's saying, hey, here's this money for even just bearing with us on this.
And this is immediately, right? Not like after a month of checking that it goes hard. It's like, no, right now it goes hard.
Yes. We did it as so that, you know, we did have a 2-week contingency period. And that period was just some minor checks. Okay. But like not the contingency period that you standard would hear, right? Where it'd be contingency period of like, and the appraiser and the surveyor, blah blah blah, and none of that. No, it was just like some other very, very minor checks on that piece. Okay, I can't make some of this stuff up. We asked them, the reason we did that was because we said, look, give us 6 months and then give us a quarterly. So every quarter we'll add in another percentage. I think it was like another 1% to add on. Okay, that was the idea. Well, we ended up having to, long story short, the first time we tried, we didn't get the financing that we needed to close on this because it was such a large deal. We couldn't do the same structuring we'd done on the deal before that. We emailed no less than 6,273 different lenders or family offices to help out with this deal. Out of 6,273 that we emailed out, less than 100 were even interested in the deal. Less than 20 could even do that deal size. Less than even 4 could realistically actually close on it on the time period that we needed. And only 1 could actually be able to do that deal with us because it was just too big. So another lesson for everybody listening in, if you think, oh, it's not really meant for me because you've talked to like 2 or 3 lenders, you're kidding yourself, okay? You have to go harder in the paint than you might think. For me, it was 6,273. Now, on the closings, there was this long due diligence process on the lenders and financiers. And what we did as this deal was we structured it where it would be a wholesale transaction, A to B, B to C transaction, but on steroids. So in this transaction, the A to B would be funded by a mixture of the financing that we'd gotten at 60% loan to value, and the other 40% would be represented by the B to C players of individual families buying their parcel of land, with the escrow company structuring the B to C sales covering the A to B portion of it, which that was groundbreaking. Nobody on the planet had ever structured a wholesale deal like that on land. And that is, by the way, why we're called Acts Decentralized Real Estate, because the idea is that in the book of Acts, people said it's written, selling of their possessions and goods, they shared with everyone in need. And we looked at the idea that, man, if people could come together, they could apply their funds to acquire things that otherwise would be impossible. In this case, it was 12 families buying 16 parcels of land. Their 16 parcels of land would represent 40% down payment on this deal, while the financing was the other 60% on the deal. Okay, so that we could acquire this $13 million of land that on day one would become about $26 million of land in equity value across all the parcels. And that's how we structured that deal.
So it kind of leads to my next question of, where are you finding these properties? Are you doing what a lot of land flippers do, where they send out direct mail and texting people, or is it just looking at what's on the MLS, finding listed on-market properties? And is that kind of what you limit yourself to? Like, what does the search look like to find the right parcel of land?
The reason I laugh is because it's so ridiculously unprofessional, but it's actually the best thing. The secret is my wife and I just text each other.
Yeah,
like we just go, and if we want to go to a certain state, we kind of just hang out, and we'll just like send each other just messages like, look at this one, like, look at this one. And we'll look at land.com. We'll look at Sotheby's. We'll look at Hall and Hall. We'll look at high tier listings. We never go for lowbrow listings. I know for a fact I could get away with just going with like flip after flip after flip of like low quality, super cheap land, buy it for X amount and just flip it, even though I know it's like not the best land. One of our values is that my wife and I and my family, we really do love this lifestyle. We really do want to live this lifestyle. And so for that reason, we never, ever, ever offer land that we wouldn't actually live. So like when we tell people like, yeah, like, you know, this is good, it's because I'd actually lived there with my wife. I'd actually put my own mother living on that parcel, my own father living there on that land. Okay, that's a different level. of trust when it's like, dude, my parents live there, right? So we go in and we offer full price. We never, ever, ever lowball anybody on any property ever. If they tell us $2 million, all right, $2 million. What we do negotiate on is the terms. So it's your price, but it's going to be my terms. And my terms are going to be, you're going to give me 6 months to gather up my families. You're going to give me 2 tranches of 2 quarters. So it's 6 months officially. And if need be, extended another quarter and another quarter on an as is needed basis, earnest money deposit that will go hard. Typically, it'll be like 1% on the deal. Okay. If it's necessary. This allows me the buyer's option contract rights to market the property. And I also ask for the right and the ability to go and do marketing on the property as needed and to, have property visits on the actual property itself. Have groups of people come out once a month or so to just go visit the land, see what it looks like. And the sellers have to be okay with that fact.
Yeah. I'm assuming during this first 6-month stretch, possibly a couple more quarters, are you allowed to do anything to the property, or you can't really touch it until you start making payments or pay the thing off?
We don't really touch it. In a perfect world, I would love that. And so sometimes I'll like start off with that, like, hey, like, let's look at these things, but it's not really necessary for our processes that we touch the land. If I was like talking to anybody about like what I would do in the future in perfect theory land, I would not involve any third-party financing at all. I would go full-blown JV partnership with one of these sellers, explaining out to them like, look, like you're asking for 2 million. If you bear with me, I can get you 3 million, but I want to be able to get started with this now. I want to get a spec home out on the land so that people can examine the spec home. We're going to partner 50-50 split. Shut up when it comes to the marketing. Just don't even on the marketing. Let me cook. Okay. Just hang out. Okay. It's going to be a 2.5-year game plan. Just hang out, bro. That's it. And we proceed forward in that way. That would be a perfect term. But the sellers that we find are typically 65 years old or more. In fact, we've never done a deal with anybody. Now we're 4 deals in. So we did 492 acres, 1,135 acres. We got 922 acres coming up now. That's to close in 10 days. And then we have another one that's 345 acres. That's to close probably September, right? Every single case, it has always been 65-year-old plus men who have owned the land for a long time. They know they're getting sick. Their family lives nowhere near their land. They simply want the cash up front so that they can set up a trust for their family. 4 deals, it's been that exact same thing.
You mentioned that you're only looking at high tier listings. So let's unpack that. What does that mean? Is it like, what's the minimum number of acres? Like, what other attributes about the property make it high tier in your opinion?
So first things first, we'll ideally look at nothing less than 500 acres. If there's an exception to that rule, it's because it's like a logical exception. So for example, we already acquired 492 acres for Little G Ranch. So that's that 500 acres. But on the back side of the property, there's another 345 acres that we're acquiring that is immediately attached to the community. We're physically going to just remove the fence line that exists between Little G and this other acquisition and extend the roads directly from Little G to this other one. So that's an annexation of 345 acres. That's the type of exception where it will go lower than that. Okay. If you were like to press me, TJ, like lowest you would ever go, gun to your head, it has to be a once in a lifetime property that is no less than 250 acres. And I'll tell you what that would look like in a moment. Now, high tier, what do I mean by high tier? Okay. So I'd said earlier, I was like, yeah, it's kind of an unprofessional process, but it works. Okay. The secret is that I know my market. We'd said, who is this avatar? They're serial entrepreneurs. They care about their family. The secret to it is it's their wives. It's their wives are the ones who find it. They'll send it over to the husbands and say, this is what I want. And these husbands will say, got it, babe. I'm going to go do this. I see the value of this. This is what we've been talking about. Let's do it. So do you think that these wives really care about comps? Do you think these wives really care about any numerical anything? No, they want what they want, and that's it. So I'm looking at properties that from the very first photo, it's a swipe right. So we call it the Tinder rule. The Tinder rule means as soon as I see that property, I'm swiping around. I'm sending that property from the very moment I lay my eyes on it. I'm there. I'm sitting at home taking care of the kids. I'm sending it over to my husband saying, this is exactly what we're talking about. This is the property. This is it. It's gorgeous. It's a 10 out of 10 in beauty. The location is ideal. The grasses, the water, everything is ideal. I'm looking to titrate and concentrate the dream that exists in people. So our Texas property is the freedom and openness and the rolling hills of East Texas that people want. These gorgeous trees, gorgeous grasses. And I have people go out there. My goal is for people to imagine a funnel where you already are hitting millions of views, but then people go out there, they're thinking it's too good to be true. They show up in person and they're going, it's even better in person than I thought when it was on Instagram, and I thought it was already too good to be true. That reaction, that is the golden reaction that we're looking for every single time. So our Florida property is exactly what you could possibly want out of a Florida property. Our Texas property is exactly what you could possibly want out of a Texas property. Our Tennessee property is exactly what you could want out of a Tennessee property. I want it to look and feel like a living, breathing Norman Rockwell painting, something that you could take a photo of and hang it up in their office. I want people to take a photo of their parcel, put it in their office, and then dream about it like a pinup model, but for land every single time. And so the last piece of it is it's going to look, it's going to feel, it's going to sound like a restaurant that is a Michelin-star restaurant, but for land. I want people to associate Axe with, like, upon hearing, this is an Axe property, like, oh, like, forget about it. Let's go. Let's check it out. The same way where if I was like, hey, Seth, let's go out for dinner. You ask me, where are you going to have for dinner? I go, dude, don't worry about it. It's a Michelin-star restaurant. You wouldn't ask me, is it Chinese? Is it barbecue? Is it American? You're just like, okay, cool. It's a Michelin star. Let's go out there. So that's kind of our mindset behind it. Now, specifics. I'd said we will never go below 250 acres unless it's a gem. Well, an example of a gem might be in an area where it's so completely rare, where it's like an impossible find. So like a Hawaiian island, 250 acres, right outside of one of the cities, like, but with perfect views out over the beach. Okay, I'll look at something like that, and I'll be willing to do it at like 5 acres at that mark, because that makes sense. Or it's some other thing where it's just like the person, they're willing to partner. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's in the perfect location. I mean, every single thing about it is a 10 out of 10. Then we'll consider something that is as low as that. So hopefully that helps out in what our mindset is when we're looking at it. We're just constantly thinking about the buyer every single step of the way.
Yeah, that does help a lot. And it makes me think about the market research question. I know a lot of land flippers will get really hung up on this because it's not unimportant, but you can also sort of get mentally stuck here when you're trying to find the perfect market with like the perfect sell-through rate and the perfect absorption rate and this and that before you actually pull the trigger and start looking to buy stuff there. So when I'm thinking about what you're doing, when you're bringing, anywhere from 50 to 100 new units onto the market as a result of doing this, do you do much market research? Like, is there something you need to see to verify the demand for what you're creating before you spend the money to do it? Or is it such a niche thing and the people who want it so bad that they will like relocate and move here just to get what you have to offer? How does that work?
That's such a good question, especially here for REtipster, because I want to be able to encourage people to kind of shift it a little bit, right? So first things first, I have never once looked up the absorption rate of any market ever whatsoever. It has never come up in any conversation between my wife and I ever, not even
Thank
once,
you for saying
not
that.
even a little bit. I will look at comparable land values to look at the overall prices of what's possible, because what's really cool about our business model is that we're targeting bulk land purchases, and the delta, the change between the bulk land purchase down to the individual 5 to 15 acre parcel price, like 500 to 1500 acre parcels to 5 to 15 acre parcels, it can be a 2 to 3x on the price per acre at the 5 to 15 acre parcel value. So we do look at what the prices are in that area for comps, and we still stretch it. Like, we're not afraid to stretch it. So for example, Grapeland, let me do the math real quick. I'll be able to find exactly what it was at. It was $4 million purchase, 492 acres. So that's $8,000 per parcel. Okay. At best, the comps were like 12K per acre. We came in and we completely changed the market. Like, we came in and within our community, it's 22 to 24K per acre for our parcels. Are you kidding me? You just 2 to 3x'd? You went from 8K to 22 to 24K? Like, that's insane. That's insane. Okay. What are you doing? And our model, by encouraging cash buyers first, that sets new comps and makes it so that that community is now that newly appraised value. So you'd said it best. Is it that people just want this stuff so badly they're willing to just relocate and move and they don't care? The answer is yes. Now, we are mindful of a few market dynamics of growth, of like shifts, movements, where people are going. And we do have a secret to it. The secret is what we call the Whole Foods rule. Ideally, find a property 90 minutes away from a Whole Foods. If you can be 90 minutes away from a Whole Foods, you're going to be pretty solid on the market of people that you want. Because I know my customers enough to know that they're Whole Foods extremists. Like, if I were to sit there and survey people shopping around at Whole Foods, there's going to be an 80-20 of people. There's going to be this 20% of people that they're more extreme than all other shoppers over at Whole Foods. And within that 20%, I do another 20%. So there's going to be a 4% of the population total that is absolute most extreme Whole Foods shoppers. They are there because they want the best of the best, organic, every single thing. So if you were to just ask them, hey, if you could live a life where you no longer have to go to Whole Foods and you instead grow your own food, do you have the capability, and would you rather start a second home and eventually sell your home to move out to a property where you could just do that? The answer is yes. And so by knowing those people and knowing their mindsets and knowing what they're looking for, we know, okay, we can deliver that in that market. The last piece is we allow pre-reservations to inform us on where to go next. I can tell you with certainty, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, California, North Carolina, and Georgia alone, those few states have more requests than the entirety of the rest of the United States of America. So I don't have to second guess myself. Am I going to have enough interest? Am I going to have enough customers? When we open up in California, I'm already sold out. That's pretty nice.
Are there certain states that you would not go to? Like, when I think about opening up this kind of thing in the upper peninsula of Michigan, like way up by Wisconsin, like pretty remote, pretty out in the middle of nowhere, it seems like that would be hard. I mean, it's definitely not within 90 minutes of a Whole Foods. So maybe that's the problem. But like, what would make you look at a market and say, absolutely not? It's the perfect property, but no, because the demand's not there.
Extreme laws that prevent things, extreme laws that would prevent key things. This sounds like, actually, we're giving the California example. So California, I can tell you right now, by the time we open up a California property, it will already be sold. So anybody listen to us, you're already too late for California. That's why it's important to still put in a reservation, be there when we go there to California, right? Because it's first come, first serve on these things. California, we have to deal with so much regulatory nonsense. We have to deal with CEQA. We have to deal with engineering, surveys, all this other stuff. I'd rather put myself in a position where I can have a win before I've even walked in, before I've even started it. So Tennessee, for example, we face very intense opposition, the NIMBYs, my backyard neighbors, all this other stuff. Great, but like, I already know my laws. If you're above 5 acres in your division and it adds no new roads or utilities, no new public roads or utilities, then there's nothing else to be said. It requires no regional planning commission oversight, any of that other stuff. So I already know that I've won the war before I even started the war. And that will really make my choices and decisions. I will not go to a remote location in the middle of Wisconsin near Michigan unless I could be like, well, there seems to be a market of people who just like They're putting the money in for the reservations. They can't shut up about this area. They've got all the buyers already lined up. The laws are already lined up. It's going to be a slam dunk deal. If I can't be like, it's going to be a slam dunk deal, then I'm just not going to go to that area.
Regarding the extreme laws you mentioned. So can you give us some other examples? Like what would be an extreme law that would keep you out? And is it really more about the laws than the actual demand, or is the demand equally as big of an issue?
Demand's equally as big. You need laws and demand. Laws, demand, location. It's like align things up. Like for the perfect property, we've got about 6 criteria: beauty, location. So it's beauty, location, economics, laws, fertility, and water. If I can line those 6 up to everything has to be an 8 out of 10 or above, or a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 for me to be able to move forward with that. So like beauty, it's got to be amazing. All of these different things. Extreme laws that might be there would be a law that says you can't dig wells. There are states where you can't dig wells. There's states where they're like, you cannot be off grid. You cannot have your own off grid solar. You must be tied to the grid. Yeah, believe it or not.
Why would there be a law?
Why?
Yeah, just some special interest in the political sphere that's saying that, or that's weird.
It's special interest groups. It's the money and the Satanism. There's areas you may have specific types of like conservation easements that people have taken too far advantage of. So South Carolina is an example of it. I have nothing against South Carolina. I love South Carolina. I really do. I think it's great. I think it's gorgeous. I love the Aiken area of South Carolina. I think I have nothing wrong with the people or the land on there. But the fact of the matter is they have incentivized things where in South Carolina, they have essentially these easements, and everybody's doing these conservation easements that make it so that they have this huge tax incentive, but congratulations, now you'll never be able to subdivide that land. So, okay, like great. Like that one guy has now a tax exemption. Nobody else will ever be able to use that land. That really, really crushes. So things like that might happen. Okay, other things we'll look at. Can you have raw milk in that area? What are the laws around raw milk? Because when you know the laws around raw milk, it tells you a lot more about the area. Building restrictions is a big one. What are the building restrictions? Are we going to have to go through a massive process, or is it going to be really easy to build in that area? I want to be in a place where it's really easy to build in that area. For example, in Texas, I had an architect, and his first week, he was going to do a whole due diligence process in the building codes. And I told him, I was like, dude, don't waste your time, man. Don't waste my time. Don't waste my money. He's like, well, I got to do it as part of my protocol. I'm telling you, there's nothing really there. He's like, no, I got to do it. So he goes and he calls the local county office. And he's like, I'd like to learn more about the building codes in this county, in Grapeland. Is there someone I can talk to about building codes? The lady's like, what? And she goes, yeah, I'd like to learn more about the building codes. She goes, oh, honey, this is out here. There's none of those building codes out there like that. You can build a skyscraper next to a mud hut for all we care. It doesn't matter.
That is the right answer.
Yeah. And so that type of mindset, like, man, that's the type of place I want to be at, right? Where I don't have to worry about all this other stuff. Versus we've been in counties where they had regulations. For example, we were going to do a deal in Tennessee. We had to pause it because of this. The county was going to try to require us to put in asphalt roads and put in curbs on the sides of the road, put in water lines and septic lines, and put in electrical lines. That alone was going to cost about $1 million per mile on an 8-mile long project between all the roads. The acquisition itself was $6.3 million, but the roads are going to be $8 million of roads. I go, we're off grid. Do you understand that? Does this, what part of off grid is like missing here on what we're trying to do? No one wants asphalt roads. No one wants curbs. Nobody wants water lines. Nobody wants something. But they don't care. They have to focus on that thing. That's the type of thing that really makes it where that project is dead. You don't want to move forward with that project. And I'd spent $125,000 just on the due diligence, surveying, flood studies, all that other stuff, but it just was not going to work out. So we just said, you know what? let it go. Lost that money, but it was worth it to not move forward with that.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, maybe I mentioned it, this idea that there's such a demand for this particular type of product that people will relocate and move just to like buy the property they want. When I think of like entire families and careers that can relocate just to live at the right property, it makes me wonder, like, what do these people do for a living that they can do this? Like a lot of people, like they have to live in a certain spot. They can't move just to do that. Do you have any insight into that? Like what do these people do? Is it like some internet business where they can live anywhere and they just choose that location?
Yeah, that's why I said earlier, like they're serial entrepreneurs. Like the serial entrepreneurs, they tend to be able to like work off a laptop and be able to get a lot of stuff done. That's part A. In general, even that being the case, the serial entrepreneurs, they tend to just have enough to just like live at a normal suburban house as they build whatever their main house, like, so they have a main house and then they just build a cabin or build something smaller on their land. And then they plan to move out to that. And then they'll kind of go to that over the weekends. And then eventually they plan to make the full transition, sell their main home, build their main home on their actual land. And they plan for that as part of their retirement. So, you ask, who are these people? By age, they're older than me. So I'm 32 years old. They're almost all older than 32 years old. They will typically be looking to retire. Okay. So this is a big conversation. Like, the reason I'm buying my land is I just want a place that I can really retire. And what retirement means for these people is to be able to focus on the things they actually want without having to worry about money. That's what retirement means. They're not, I want to live in a nursing home community. It's nothing like that. It's the complete opposite. Next piece is, we do have some people, they'll just transition to taking a job in that area. They'll just, like, they do one thing, and if it's a trades work or something like that, they'll just do the same thing, but like in the new area. And that's why it's nice if you have the Whole Foods rule. Like, they can get away with it if you're just moving to an area where it's close. Like if you go to Sebring, Florida, there's jobs in Sebring, Florida. You just move down there. Last things that kind of happen for people that help them with the transition, we offer. So when you decide to build a home with us, but only if you decide to build a home with us, we offer free strategy and business consulting with people to answer this specific question. So another thing I've never heard of a land developer that does this, but I actually sit down with people. I actually have real conversations about what Google Ads campaigns will look like for their businesses as they transition out here onto the land. And that is a complimentary service. So they'll sit here. Like, this was a real family. Okay. Over in Florida, we have a family that we sat down with. They wanted to create a birth center. So a home birthing center that would be there on the land where you're giving birth next to the lakes and next to the water over there in Florida. We sat there and we did a competitive analysis of what top performing birthing centers look like in Florida, as well as top performing birthing centers over in social media, what their copywriting looks like, what their offers look like, what their websites look like. We created a 10-page sheet of that, and then created the website and the messaging on that website for them to start pre-selling reservations for their home birthing center in about an hour. We did all this stuff together. Okay. What other developer is going to do that? Like, are you kidding me right now? That's a completely different like ballpark of like helping people out with their transition. So by doing that and helping them with that marketing, they're thinking to themselves, okay, how can I create what we call their income generation engine that allows them to consider what their mortgage is? And our goal with the income generation engine is, step one, let's just make something. Okay, let's just make something. Step two, let's make something that can just pay half the mortgage. Let's just, if we could just pay half the mortgage, what an amazing deal. I mean, that's incredible. Okay. Then let's see if we can make something that can break even. All right. Let's just see what it would take to break even. Then let's consider to start making actual income. So their goal is not, let me buy this land and let me have an income generation engine because this is going to replace my career. It's more just like, wow, I get to have my dream ranch and it can pay for itself at least a little bit. It can start, over time with the right strategy, I can get it to the point where it pays for itself almost entirely. That way I don't have to worry about the mortgage nearly as much and run it passively. That's a really powerful thing for them.
Now, for a 5 to 15 acre property here, like we're talking house, farm, utilities and all, how much are people paying to get all of that up and running? Like, I think you said 250, 450K. Is that just for the land or is that like everything?
So to buy the land itself, our parcels range low end about $150,000, high end $300,000 for our parcels. We have like two parcels that are like, these are like the Rolls Royce of land. If you saw this thing, anybody who sees it instantly knows. Nobody questions why it's an example of a $450,000 parcel. When you just see it, it's like, duh, when you see it. But for the most part, they're between 150 to about 300. The sweet spot is right about 225-ish for most of our properties, whether we're talking about Texas, Florida, or Tennessee. That's right about the sweet spot. An overall build out, land, 5 to 15 acres of land, a home, 2,000 square foot home, off-grid utilities, solar, septic, well, backup generator, propane tank, and at least the beginnings of an operational farm, even if it's a smaller one, smaller ranch size, $850,000. That's the smaller end of what we're looking at, $850,000. For those listening in, it turns out to be right at around a mortgage of right around $5,000, including PMI. So if you can have between lowest end is going to be 4,000. I don't really recommend for anybody listing in. I don't want to gas anybody up and be like, you're going to have all this stuff for less than about 4,000, but 4,000 to 5,000, you're pretty okay. And if you have a budget, if you can do more than that, then you're going to be absolutely fine. There's no question about it. That means that typically people must make an income, like a combined household income of about 12,000, between $10,000 to $12,000 per month. If you have a combined household income of $10,000 to $12,000 per month, you can start with us. Like you should be fine. Sweet spot, $15,000 per month. I'm definitely not worried about you if you make $15,000 per month.
Yeah. And most of these people, well, I guess I don't want to paint too broad of strokes, but you said like homeschooling is important, which makes me think, okay, so I guess that means a parent isn't working or can at least have the time to do homeschooling. So that means the income probably comes from one person in many cases, right? So they got to have a pretty good income, whatever they do.
Yeah, more likely than not. And, I want to, with what we do, I want to make it more available, but I'm using what I call kind of the Tesla business model. So if you look at Tesla, they started out with the Roadster. The Roadster was like a $125,000 car. It was a sports car, right? And they did that at the higher price point before they went down to the lower price point of like the Model 3, I think it is, or the Model whatever it is. That's like a much more affordable model. When we looked at this, I mean, you were there when Jerry was talking about it. Like the properties we offer would otherwise be like $5 to $8 million versus we're offering it at $850,000 low end. If you asked me, okay, the most ideal, like really everything I could want, you can basically have everything you want at $1.5 million. You pretty much can have almost every amenity, like most of the things that you could think of at $1.5 million. I don't really see why you have to go that much higher than that when buying and building with us and still have really cool stuff. Like $1.5 million, you could have the house, you could have cabins, you can have the utilities, have a dirt bike track, have a workshop. You can have a lot of stuff at $1.5 million.
Yeah. And before these child parcels are marketable and ready to sell, I'm assuming you're putting in some infrastructure, right? Like, are you putting in, is it like asphalt roads or anything else? Or what does that look like in terms of like the improvements you make before it's like, yep, you can buy your parcel now?
We do gravel roads. We don't add in anything like, for example, you don't buy the parcel with well already on it. You don't buy the parcel with septic already on it. We do also earmark, but the question was like before you sell it, right? Before we sell it, it's just divide it and then we start adding the roads in as we continue building. Everybody does have access. We get asked that all the time. Like, why would I sell you land you don't have access to? That's absurd. Everybody has access. And we just use private access easements to be able to do that. You don't use roads, it's private access easements. We also earmark after the fact a community center and a community center build out. So at the community center, you would have homeschooling. So to answer your question, like, oh, well, what if both people work? They could often like go and hang out with the kids over at the community center and homeschool the kids along with some of the other kids.
And that doesn't exist until they're all sold. And that's like an after the fact thing.
It's an after the fact thing. It's an after the fact thing. Yeah.
So other than that community center, is there any other common area that everyone can use or?
Yeah, there's some just common areas and stuff like that in terms of fields. And the culture, you don't really put fences between one neighbor and the next neighbor, so you can go take a walk. Like you're gonna be fine. Like it's not that, it's not. That's kind of the cool thing about it. Like the culturally, you can go walk across the parcels. It's not that big a deal. Like you would never walk around the front yard of your neighbors in a normal suburban neighborhood, but you absolutely can.
Are there like ongoing monthly or annual fees required to live in these communities? And if so, like what is it and what does that pay for? Is it just those common areas?
No, there's none.
Nothing. Okay, so once you buy in, like there's zero additional cost other than property taxes, I assume.
Yeah, property taxes.
Sure. Okay.
And one of our goals is actually to kind of partner with you and get you paid. So I thought about flipping the model of an HOA that depends on us paying stuff in. And I was like, you know what? You can better reward and incentivize good behavior by having a system that actually pays people. So like you're going to want to stick to the deed restrictions because they add to the value of they definitely add to the value of the property, no question about it. But they also keep you safe. They make it so that rentals are going to be way more valuable. They also allow us to graze the land and have better farming techniques. So for example, why do we not have spray chemicals? Because we are grazing the cattle across everybody's parcels. So it'll be on Seth's parcel, it'll be on TJ's parcel, it'll be on Kara's parcel as they just kind of graze around. We're going to sell that food. We're going to sell that livestock for food. And now that we're selling it as food, you make an income off of that. I mean, it's not going to be a crazy income. You're not going to be replacing your entire salary because of it. But it certainly is like, well, okay, wow, cool. Like I've got a paycheck. That's pretty nice compared to having to pay in a fee. People would much rather get a paycheck than pay in a fee.
So if there's no ongoing fees, then who pays to like maintain the roads and stuff? And like, how do you keep everybody rowing in the same direction if there's no HOA?
The deed restrictions and the incentives wanted raw foods and from like rentals. So because people just, they understand like what's the value of it, they also know like, okay, like I definitely want to stick to it for that. In terms of settling issues, the cutoff of services is the big like, oh, okay, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be cut off of services. So for example, like we don't want to work with you. We maintain the right of free association. Like I don't want to work with you if you slept with my wife. Like why would I want to do that? So we'll just, all right, go ahead. Now go ahead and good luck taking care of the livestock on your own. Like have at it now. Like that's enough for people to be like, dude, I don't want to do that without having to incur fees to people. You see what I'm saying? We have it so that each one of the ranches, the goal is for each one of the ranches to be completely self-sustaining through its own economic factors, like through the sale of food, through the cabin rentals, through partnering with that. Like, yeah, when we're partnered on cabin rentals, it's 50-50. Like we're actually splitting 50-50. So I want it, I'll take some of that, make sure the roads are okay because it helps you and it helps me because now our guests get to go to the cabins. So that's the type of thing that we earmark.
Well, the road thing is kind of interesting. I live in a little, it's called a site condo association, and the road that goes in front of my house is like 35 years old. Some people would say it's in severe disrepair. Other people would say it's perfectly fine. Let it go to gravel. We don't care. Just let it go. And this is a disagreement that happens in our neighborhood, which I'm told is actually pretty common in HOAs with road issues like this, where people can't agree on when it actually needs to be replaced. So like, who gets to make that decision? If one neighbor thinks this is horrible, we got to fix it. The other neighbor's like, I don't care. It's fine. Like, who makes the call?
The good news is because there's not so much bureaucracy,
yeah,
quite literally, like it's just talking about it with the neighbors and just being like, I mean, if there's a glaring issue, it's a glaring issue. We all have the same motives here. So if there's a gigantic pothole that doesn't allow people to drive their car, like, dog, let's fix up the pothole so that people can drive their car, right? That's the overall mindset behind that. And you want to make sure for individuals like that they have access to their stuff. So you handle that on an individual basis. And they have a relationship with the ranch hands. It's the ranch hands and the construction guys that are doing the roads. So you just talk to them like, hey, can you fix this up? And it doesn't really take much for them because it's gravel. So you just kind of take the tractor and you just pave it over a little bit and it gets better as soon as you do that. So it's pretty easy to handle things that way.
Yeah. Have you found, do people build like site-built houses or do they bring in mobile homes or like what do people typically do to construct their residence?
Site build. We've done a model. We were looked at kit models, but it was just easier to just do the site builds. It's just for the designs that people wanted. It was just better to do site builds. typically stick. Although we tell people all the time, consider us like for Axe Homes, it's like Willy Wonka meets Tony Stark. That means we're going to hear out your ideas for like whatever crazy thing you have to say. We've heard people who want to do Hobbit Shires. We've heard people who want to do, I mean, quite seriously, whatever your mind can come up with. Bubble domes, container homes, colonial homes, Spanish homes. Like we've heard of everything. Like people really have all sorts of amazing ideas. But we're also going to talk to the people about, hey, like this is doable. This is not doable. This is buildable. This is not buildable based on what their land is. Like, for example, someone in Florida, they wanted to do a cob home, but in Florida. And it's just like, dude, that's made out of straw. You're in Florida. There's hurricanes. There's, but I've heard of other communities doing it. They're even doing it. Yeah, it's not the same. I'm not going to put my name behind that. I'm not going to build a straw home in Florida. I'm not going to have the big bad wolf knock it down. Like this is just not reasonable. So that's the type of conversation we'll have with people.
Yeah. So like if somebody has the option of buying their own 10 acres and putting their own mobile home there and just kind of living as their own little island versus this, the thing that makes them choose this instead, is it because they're attracted to like the values in the community and that kind of thing? Like, is that the pitch and the reason why they're saying, no, I want to do it with this group, with these restrictions, instead of on my own, where I have to pay separately for property taxes and all this stuff? Like how does a person land with you, apparently in droves, because there's a ton of demand for it and it sells fast? Like, why is that happening?
That's a great question. The main answer is it's exactly that realization. It's when people finally come to the conclusion, it's another biblical conclusion, that we are better off working together than we are trying to do everything on our own. I know that there's this impetus that we have, but it comes from two places. It comes from childhood trauma, and it does come from the fact that like there are a lot of people that have hurt us in the past, betrayals, screw ups, backstabbings, different things like that. That it feels like, man, like I don't know if I can work with other people, but if you can be with other people that have the right sentence, have the right values, then you can leverage the group, the power in numbers to maintain the best of both worlds, where you have the independence. At the end of the day, we are really not limiting people at all on like the style of home that they choose. Like we have nothing on what color to choose, nothing like that. So you have the ability to run wild with your imagination, but through the power in numbers, we're able to get better labor and better deals and better materials than a person would otherwise be able to do on their own. Finding good construction contractors that are willing to go 90 minutes outside of the city is very difficult. Because why would you, if I'm in construction and I'm choosing homes and I could just work around my one neighborhood, wouldn't I just work around the one neighborhood? You see the problem? However, we have no problem recruiting world-class builders out there. Like we're working with Rocky Mountain Homes. They come out and they stay at the property. They never have to think about where they're going to source their next piece of work or their next project. And they can easily go from one project to the next project to the next project because of the power in numbers. So if you try to do it on your own, you're going to go into competition with a person like me who has access to so many families that I've gone to the wells, the solar, the septic guys, the construction guys, the farmers, and been like, I already have 40 families ready to work with you. You just have to do a good job. Do you think they're going to deny that opportunity? Hey, you literally never have to work for another lead at all for the next few years? Of course not. And so we have better market dynamics to support a better model across the board. So the person who's doing everything on their own, they're not more free, okay? Because now they're actually restricted by the decisions of their neighbors that are not under deed restrictions. Like our deed restrictions, yes, they're deed restrictions, but these restrictions ensure and guarantee you live a freer life, ironically. It is through those boundaries and through that discipline, we have more freedom. So that's one. Two, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, you could not get the trades and the labor and the discounts that we get because you don't have the power in numbers. Then three, you don't have the skills we have. Four, you don't have the experience we have. Five, you don't have the time we have because most of these people are entrepreneurs. They don't have like, it's a nightmare. It's so much of a headache trying to look over everything on our own. We can easily look over everything for you. And that applies to the builds, and it applies to the farming and ranching. Like, you don't have to have any farming experience at all. And yet we have world-class farmers that are looking over the cattle for you. They're making sure that they're fed right, that they're looked over right. They're getting the right grasses. They're processed the right way. You don't have to think about any of that stuff. And so the answer is, people join us when they make the following decisions. Decision number one: it is unacceptable to know what I know about our society and continue to live this way. Fiat currency is going to zero. Society is going to zero. Cities are going to zero. And there will be a black swan event that is going to occur. And I don't want to be sitting there wondering, oh, I had no idea that this was going to happen. We all know it's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and we don't know how it's going to be, but there's going to be a black swan event. Two, now that they've made that conclusion, they make the conclusion, I must move off grid. I must start my homestead. Three, they then make a decision, okay, how am I going to do it? I need to buy and build custom rather than buying into an agrihood or buying into some type of compromised community. That's the big problem. People compromise. Then they come to the conclusion, so I must DIY, but should I DIY? And then they realize, bang, oh, what holds me back is the amount of overwhelm that I feel from trying to DIY everything. If I'm going to join anybody, I have to join some type of group. That's why the Amish do so well. That's why the Mennonites do so well. That's why so many groups do so well. I need to join a group of like-minded people, or else I'm leaving myself hanging. And when they do that, they conclude, okay, actually centralized real estate is the group of people I want to be with. They've got the right power numbers, and I can actually live out my dreams the way I've wanted to. And that's it.
If one of your communities is widely successful 20 years from now, and maybe they're already there today, I don't know, but what does everyday life actually look like there? Paint the picture for like, what does success mean here based on what you're trying to build?
So I'll tell you what it was like over in Florida. Like, my wife and I, what we do is we go from property to property. So we have a Sprinter van. So I go from Texas, I go down to our Florida ranch, then I'll go up to Tennessee. So we're making, as we finish up that Tennessee property, we're going to be living there. There's a red brick house over at the property. Like, we're going to just be over there at the red brick house on the land over in Tennessee, just hanging out there. I would like to wake up in the morning. You know how a lot of people are doing biohacking with red light therapy? The real red light therapy is the sun. So I found that when I live in a normal suburban house that I rent, I don't really wake up with the sun. I tend to wake up at like 8, 9, 10 p.m. I really sleep in. But when I'm on the ranch, I almost always just automatically start waking up at like 5 in the morning. Not because of some discipline thing, but because my body is just excited to wake up at that time. I wake up, it's red sunlight, things are just coming up. I go and I take a walk on my land. When I take a walk on my land, I can see my livestock. They're just hanging out. They're just doing their own thing. And I go and I listen to audiobooks, and I pray, and I listen to the book of Psalms. That's actually what's been able to help me make it through the most difficult times that I've been going through in the last few weeks. Then I go back. I've got Starlink internet, so I'm able to go and knock stuff out for my business, take calls that I need to take. And believe it or not, I get more done living off grid than I do in my normal suburban house, because I found that when I live off grid, if I have major problems or major crises or decisions, I will go take walks on my land, and I'll just walk around, and just walking around on my land, my bare feet on the grass, and having the sun hitting my face, and just being blessed by having my land. It just springs up better ideas than I previously had. Later on in the evening, I have dinners. So I have people come over, and we have dinners. I'm gonna run, and I'm gonna come back in just 2 seconds. You got to see this, okay? So what I was going and getting is, this is ground beef. Let me see if you can see this. This is actual ground beef from Little G Ranch, from my land. This is pork. This is bacon from my livestock. This is chicken that comes from my actual land. And so what I'm eating for dinner is I'm eating meat. that comes from the actual land itself. It's as healthy as you can possibly get when it comes to meat. It's unfathomably healthy. It's so good. It's so tasty. We kind of don't even realize the slop that we get day to day until you eat food like this. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's all these different notes that you don't typically have from grocery store foods. At night, I spend time with my family, enjoy the sunset, kind of hang out. They run around. The kids love running around. They go and explore. They go look at the trees, go look in the creeks, go look at the animals, go look at just everything. Children just love basically being outside. They're just outside all day. And at nighttime, hang out, probably watch a movie or two, and then go to sleep, and then wake up, do the same thing every single day. And that's the lifestyle.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for painting that picture. Now, when I heard you talking earlier this year at Jerry Norton's house, I heard you say something that really stuck with me. You said, and I might be butchering a little bit, but you said something to the effect of, we as entrepreneurs sometimes struggle not because of our strategy or technology, but because we are fighting against God. Can you unpack what you meant by that?
I mean, I meant that quite literally. We often struggle and fight against God. There's a difference between your standard strategy and what I call spiritual warfare. Okay. Now, it's a woo topic that you won't typically hear. Like, it's not the typical topic for REtipster, right? To talk about spiritual warfare. But at the same time, it's really important because the distinguishing factor between standard strategy and spiritual warfare is the following. Standard strategy is literally just, okay, we've come up with the strategy. The only thing to do now is to just follow the instructions and put in the work. That's it, right? If you have a good enough strategy, all you have to do is implement it. Now, unfortunately, it is true that there are plenty of people who do, in fact, have a poorly done strategy. They do, in fact, just are lazy. They don't follow the strategy. What I'm talking about with spiritual warfare is a completely different category. Whatever your plans are, and this is the defining factor, it's you did have a good plan. You do have good contingencies, and yet there are black swan events and people that are popping up in such a way that it goes beyond any strategy you could have otherwise possibly had, far beyond what you could have possibly had. And often these things may go one of two ways. Okay. So there's a positive and negative version of it, or a godly version of it. And there's also like the evil kind of part of it. One part of it may be that you're so focused on your strategy and how you benefit monetarily more often than not, or it will be some type of idol, money, fame, recognition. Maybe it's that like you have a validation issue and you need to show up for everybody else, and it's really just playing out your childhood issues. Then God may close doors. And so you're trying to apply a strategy. It's not working because God is closing the doors. And here's the thing, you'll know it. You will know secretly that it's selfish, that it's wrong. If you're really truly honest with yourself, people ask, how do you listen to the voice of God? Even an atheist may ask, that's impossible. Hear the voice of God. Even the atheist knows what I mean if I say, be honest with yourself about your motivations. If a person is honest with themselves about their motivations and what they know to be true and all these other things, it may be that you're actually actively going against what you know to be true about God's wishes, and you're actually setting yourself up for failure. Therefore, no matter what you're doing with your work or your strategy, it's never going to work, because God himself is like, this is not for you. This is not the right thing, right? It would be like, okay, I'm sure before you started REtipster, that there was like this like moment of like resistance versus just do the thing. Did that ever happen for you? Something like that? That kind of just like, was there ever anything that would have been like this kind of like resistance to it, but it just felt like a pushing against, and it just kind of like tugged you in towards it? Was there anything like that on REtipster or on a real estate deal? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, if by resistance, if you mean like fear of the unknown, like that happens almost all the time, where I'm just kind of scared of something. And really, there's a weird pattern where I usually get afraid of something when something great is about to happen. So it's like I do kind of need to push through it, but I don't know if that's what you mean, but that comes to mind.
And no, that's part of it. That's what I mean. Like sometimes people will try to use strategy to to mitigate for their fears, right? And that's another side of it. It's like they know what they want. They know what's truly there if they're honest with themselves about what they want to do, but they've been so busy holding back on some other strategy that is alternative to what they actually in their core, like in their brain, their heart, their gut, their balls, like what they feel is what they know they want to do. And they're using some other strategy to avoid it. Does that make sense? Like the person refuses to just enter into a market because they're so busy doing market research for the umpteenth time and they don't just, just get started, that type of procrastination. That may be God blocking you on it if your strategy just magically does not work. On the other hand, you might have situations where things will pop up and it's because you're making an impact. It's because you're making a difference, and use whatever term you want, the enemy, the opposition, the elite, all of these different things. The system, the matrix control system does not want you to succeed in that. If you succeed in that thing, it upends industries. It changes entire, it changes so many other people's lives, many of them good, but there's other people who have a vested interest in the negative aspects of that these things will pop up. And the goal is to get you to try to quit. Okay. So this is different from just your average, oh, things were just hard. No. It will be a coordinated effort to try to get you to quit every single time, again and again and again, to try to get you to feel like I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Maybe it would just be better if I quit, all these different things. And the question is, are you going to give into that? And what systems have you set up so that when those crises come up, you're still able to make it through those crises in a healthy fashion? A lot of people, they don't set up the necessary infrastructure for their lives and their mind and their relationships when that is going to pop up in those situations. And that's what makes it really hard.
So if a person is feeling resistance and seeing constant red lights instead of green lights, how can they know if that's because they're fighting against God versus fighting against the world? Like, how do they know I should keep pushing versus like, I'm doing something wrong? Like, how can they check themselves?
Avoidance of what you know is true. Avoidance of what you know is true and good and what you know makes the world a better place. It's that avoidance. So if it's red lights out of fear or red lights, another thing you could have is you can have red lights from anxiety or or like taking on opportunities that aren't the right opportunities for you, but you know for a fact it's like a side thing. So for example, like I'm doing X and like every other week I get someone who is messaging me, they want to do some type of project. And I'll be like, maybe let's look into this. Like there was a gentleman, he'd had a great project and I was doing my own thing. I, for example, don't believe in alcohol. I think that the right amount of alcohol is no amount of alcohol. There's not a single drop. Okay. And then maybe if it's in like a children's medicine, there's not a single drop of alcohol that I believe a person should drink. That's my own opinion. I don't, other people can make their own decision. Now, here's the thing. There was an opportunity that we had, and it was a slam dunk opportunity. It was in Guadalajara, Mexico, this deal for like 250 something acres, but it was in Jalisco where it would be a divided subdivision development that would have these gorgeous short-term rentals, and the farming would be farming this very rare form of tequila. It'd be tequila that is fully organic tequila done with the original ancient Mexican ways of actually like sourcing the alcohol. Now, the thing is that I know for a fact, I don't believe in drinking alcohol. I don't like alcohol. I don't like the sales of alcohol. I don't like it overall. Again, it's not about making an argument about it, but I know that the numbers on this thing, I'm not kidding around. This is a 9-figure opportunity. Okay. This opportunity and I didn't have to do anything other than like make like 3 connections. So if I could make like 3 connections, raise the amount of money that I could probably raise in like a weekend, I could be part of this 9-figure deal. The guy invites me out to go there to Mexico, to Jalisco, through the Guadalajara airport. And he's kind of pushing a little bit more than usual. And I kind of know, I'm like, no, I've got a few other things coming up. I don't want to go into this. This is kind of a little bit too fast. Like, I'm not really sure about it, but I'm like, maybe we do go. I talk about it with my wife. She's like, nah, babe, I don't really think it's right. So we decide, We ended up deciding not to go because we were going to go on like February 22nd. All right. That week that we decided not to go, at the Guadalajara airport, the Mexican cartel bombed the airport and then held everybody in the airport hostage the week we were going to go there. That listening to that, I mean, I can't even describe what a nightmare that would have been for my family. There was videos and pictures of people hanging out as there was gunfire in the airport. So that resistance, that was God helping me. And just imagine if I would have been trying to go down there. You see, that's an example of like, okay, clearly, like, don't do that. And that's a good red light. I think it was like a last minute, like some other thing popped up and it didn't really make sense business wise. And I was kind of a little bit like, and he was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? So that's that. Okay. Now let's talk about the opposite. Okay. We're closing this deal in Tennessee. The first time I closed the deal, I tried in Tennessee, we failed. We had that issue with the due diligence during the survey period. We failed. And it was not just one property, it was two properties. But we still know deep in our hearts, like we have to take land in Tennessee. When the property had been given to us, it was an off-market deal and it was absolutely gorgeous. It fit every single one of the criteria that we could possibly want. The seller is an amazing individual. I consider him a mentor, not just a cool guy to know, an actual mentor that we talk to day to day. We have fought and we have put things together to get the necessary financing on the actual lending and then the seller financing. And that took a long time. That took months. Meanwhile, the neighbors hate me. They call me a carpetbagger. They think that I'm a piece of S. Okay. They do everything that they can. They've gone to our buyers to try to intimidate them. They text people to try to intimidate them. They slander me online. They post photos of me online. They make up fake profiles to try to harass me and then deny the fake profiles, even though it's very clear you can use Google reverse image search to figure out that they're fake profiles. They send me intimidation letters saying, if you try to move forward with this, we're going to try to sue you, even though I know they have no stand for a lawsuit. Out of 11 families getting ready to do this deal, seven of them have dealt with a hospitalization or a death, including the death of my own son. Immediately after the death of my own son, there was immediate hospitalization of a real estate investor's daughter. One of the other lenders, his daughter went to the hospital. One of the other players, his father passed away. And another one, they had a freak accident where a car crash hit them. Another one, there was another car crash. So 3 different car crashes. You push past that. Those are not examples of let's not move forward with this deal. What it sounds like, what it feels like to not move forward is it will feel stupid. It will feel stupid and wrong. So when we did the Tennessee deal, the other one that was like $8 million with the curves roads and the asphalt, I was just like, you know what, dude, this is not worth it. Like, this is just like, forget this. Like, I don't really need this. I don't really care. It wasn't like a moral stance. It just felt stupid. Other things in my life, anybody who's listening to this, regardless of faith, you know what it's like to have made a change in your life where you're like, this is stupid. Like, I go back to the example for you, Seth. It's like, at some point it felt stupid to not just start and just do the podcast already. Just stop circling around. Just do it. Right. And I don't have to pull out the Bible. There's nothing that says in the Bible, thou shalt make a podcast. You just know, and you felt in your gut, you're like, dude, just do it. Just do it. Right. And it feels wrong if you don't do it. Other things that feel stupid and wrong to me. There was a time where I used to play a lot of video games. Now I don't consciously try to not play video games. I don't say to myself like, okay, today I need to make it through the day to not play video games. I just don't. Porn. I don't watch porn anymore. There was a time when I used to, when I was 12, 13, I watched it every single day of the week, multiple times a day. Now I don't at all. It gives me the ick. I just feel it's not even appealing. It's just like, ugh. In the same way, when you're doing something, if it's the wrong thing or the wrong person, the wrong relationship, the wrong partner, you'll get an ick that will make it completely and totally obvious to you when you're going against the ick. And if it's not obvious to you, it's because you're not being honest with yourself. When I'm dealing with customers, I don't ask them about their faith because guess what? There's plenty of Christians I talk to that they're scumbags. There's plenty of Christians that are scumbags, okay? overwhelming number of them actually that will come. They'll start talking about the Bible, and I'll just get an ick, and I'll just be like, I don't want to deal with this person. This is completely fake. There's business deals, business partnerships. It's the interactions, the way people say things, do things, their motivations on things. There's no one thing, but if you pay attention enough, you'll just kind of notice like 1,000 different things at any given moment, and you'll get that ick that just says, this is stupid, this is wrong, I don't want to do this. And you just have to be honest with yourself that the only reason you might be pushing forward is because of fear, obligation, and guilt, and not looking bad, or not wanting to disappoint other people, or not wanting to be invalidated, or any one of these other things. But if you're honest with yourself, you could say, dude, you know what? Forget this. I've had employees, they've said things, they've done things that I've allowed because I would have fear. If they leave, people are going to be scared. If they leave, it's going to be so sad. I'm going to have talks, all this other stuff. But then after a certain point, I just don't feel bad about it anymore. And you just move on. And so this same mindset can be applied to anything in life. If you simply, truly pursue the question, okay, am I going to regret this on my deathbed? Or am I going to regret this with this other person being dead? That's the other side that I learned after my son's passing. It will make your life straight. You can't go wrong. You, by definition, cannot go wrong if you simply continue a life based on the question, will I regret this on my deathbed or not? When my son passed away, he passed away 1 week before his second birthday. Literally 1 week. His funeral was on his second birthday. We actually had the balloons, the streamers, all this other stuff. That kid only knew the food that I grew. He went from Texas to Florida to New York. He went to Minnesota. He went to the West Coast. He went to California. He went through Montana. He visited the whole entire nation. He wasn't even 2 years old. I can live as a father knowing that every day that I had with him, I really, really enjoyed the time that I spent with him. And I built a lifestyle that was so integrated that my family was with me the whole entire time. I wasn't living this 9-to-5 lifestyle where I never got to see my children. I never got to raise him growing up. Every morning he would be there and I would change his diapers and he would spend and take a bath with me. And I remember all of those things. And now that he's passed, obviously I want him and I miss him so badly, more than anything else in my life. But I also know that I really took advantage of that time, and I have no regret at all on that side of things for the first 2 years of that young man's lifestyle. And so I pursue a property like this Tennessee property that we've had so much opposition from, where they really, I mean, they say the most horrible things about me. Horrible. I would never say these things to another person, these things. And I think to myself, no, I would regret it so much for the rest of my life if I didn't play through the whistle. In the honor of my son, I think quitting right now would be a dishonor to my son. I think that letting all this other stuff get in my way, I think this would be the worst time. And I live without that regret. I don't regret the money I've spent in, even though so much of it has been so many mistakes, so many different hard issues. But I can sit there, I can look at any buyer and be like, no, we went as hard in the paint with the investments of time and money and energy as you can possibly ask me. Nobody can criticize me in the sense of the effort or the attempt or the want to really be able to put in every single bit that I possibly could to get this. And people overcomplicate it, thinking that hearing the voice of God or finding their purpose is this like big thing where you smoke a ton of ayahuasca and oh, now I see it. Oh, you don't have to do all that. Like literally just pursue the truth. Be very radically honest with yourself and consider, all right, by the end of this podcast, this opportunity that I've had, I've thought about it for a long time. Did I say the things I needed to say, or did I hold back out of fear? When I have an interaction with Seth, if this is the last time I ever talked to Seth, is this the way I want to leave it? Am I okay with that? There are people, by the way, that doesn't mean that everything's kumbaya. There are people that I'm like, you know what? This is the last conversation we're ever going to have. This is draining too much of my energy right here, right now. I don't want this anymore. We're okay. And I don't regret it. There's deals like that. It happens in our relationships. It happens in what we wear. It happens in what we think. If you examine it, every single part of our lives can be guided by this question of, let's be very honest with ourselves. What would we truly regret? And what would we not regret for simply having tried? And if we tried and we failed, I would rather take the time to just do that, because it doesn't take that long, and make a pivot knowing, rather than stick there in analysis paralysis, waiting around, waiting in water, doing absolutely nothing with my life the whole entire time until, oh, it's too late. Oh, I didn't do the things that I wanted to do. If more people were more honest with themselves that way, more people would actually listen to the voice of God, regardless of what they think their actual faith is. Adding in the Bible is a really good strategy guide. I remember I used to play Pokemon, and I remember in Pokemon, you had the little maps in the game that you could buy, and they would teach you how to navigate through the Pokemon game. So when I look at the Bible, it's like giving me the map and the guide, and it's the best way forward according to my Father. And I don't have to care about, well, does everybody else do that? Okay, I know for me, it's the best foot forward that my Father's given me. He's given, the creator of the universe came down to earth, gave me an example, and then wrote out an entire instruction manual what to do. And I can use that instruction manual as I pursue and am honest with myself about what I want out of life and what I would regret out of life for not having tried. And between the two, between having faith in my Father, faith in his promises, and faith in his word, and faith in his Son who came down as to represent him and that showed me the way, between that and just not having any regrets, there's nothing else to say. That is the way. That is literally the way. To me, that is faith. That is what people call Christianity, but I don't even like that word. But I just see that as that is the way. It is the truth. It is the light. And that is pursuit of Jesus.
Well, final question. If X were to disappear tomorrow, what problem would you spend the rest of your life trying to solve?
If Axe disappeared tomorrow, I would just do the things that I'm doing in Axe.
Would it like, I guess when I say that, I mean like this whole business model of acquiring land, chopping it up, selling it in this way. Like if for some reason, like you're not allowed to do that anymore, you can't deal with land. Like what does this look like?
Okay, all right. So I'm not allowed to do it anymore whatsoever. Then I would solve the problem of the fact that people in humanity live in such deep fear, and they absolutely do not go out of their way to honor and represent faith in the Lord here on earth. Having the ability to have more people more often live in that faith, live without that regret, where they really do pursue the absolute truth of their being, of living a life without regret, helping people get over this would be massive. In fact, honestly, Seth, in some ways, I actually do feel like I'm making that transition even as we speak. I've faced many different hardships, many different things in this business model, many different things that have been very hard. And I've been feeling a call to help other people in a larger movement where they themselves begin trying out this business model for themselves, dotting land across the country. In order to do that, they have to get over their fear, obligation, guilt, and shame that holds them back. Those are the shackles. Those are the prison walls that create the matrix. And so I believe that I could do that for the rest of my life. Whether I'm here now, whether I'm a billionaire, whether I'm a trillionaire, I would just keep on doing that. But I would do it in a way, the only thing that I would change, my only regret with Axe, is I allowed it to steal a little bit too much of my peace. So I'm going to be changing things where moving forward with this, I believe we're going to do 10 times more while also being 10 times more peaceful. And that's where I believe my God is taking me with all of this stuff. I believe that we're going through a transition period that really allows us to grow more while being more peaceful. And so, yeah, helping people stop the fear, obligation, guilt, and shame matrix while being more peaceful and expanding on the number of people who have properties across the U.S. That is my highest goal and purpose here in this lifetime before I die.
how do you 10x your growth while being 10 times more peaceful? Is it like a mindset issue? Just think about things differently? Or is it like something tangible you have to change about that?
It's actually an identity issue. A lot of people, they are so stuck on tactics. For one, tactics are like individual to-do list type. If I can put it in a to-do list task, that little task, that's your tactic. Strategy is the overall, like, what is the system that you are building based on a limited amount of resources to achieve the things that you want to achieve. Most people, they don't understand that. The only thing they understand is I want a thing and then I want the thing now. So they can only live a life based off of not even tactics. It has to be push button. That's it. Then you have some people who can use tactics. That's middling. Some people actually use real strategies, okay, of building systems. Like the real people who get what they want out of life, they build a system that automatically helps them do the behaviors they must do in order to get what they want, okay? And I'm saying beyond even that are decisions, and beyond decisions are your identity itself. There exists a lifestyle, there exists an identity. There is a version of you that can do the things you want to do 10 times higher than what you currently are doing and 10 times easier. But you just have to look at who that person is and what level of the game they play at, right? So like, okay, that sounds like, who do you interact with, right? Who are you allowing as a customer? Some people, they're listening to this podcast and they're like, oh man, I don't know if I could do a $500,000 deal. And it's just like, dog, you might have an easier time doing a $5 million deal. All right. And for some people who might know, like I know on some deals, yeah, it's actually easier. It might be easier to do the $5 million deal than a $500,000 deal. You have more margin. You can get maybe better financing terms. You can have a better partner. You've got more time on your hands. It might actually be the case. Same thing from 5 million to 50 million. Maybe you don't know it, but if you put the right people together, you put the right things together, you could put together a $50 million deal. And where for 5 million, you had to talk to 50 different investors. For $50 million, you only have to talk to 2. Well, that's an example of doing something that is 10 times easier, even though it's 10 times bigger, right? And we just don't think of it that way. I think about actually centralized real estate and I ask myself, all right, we've done 2 properties. Soon it's going to be 4 properties by the end of this summer, really. Okay, how do I turn it into 40 properties? Wow, that's a big thought. Like, okay, maybe I have to shift my communications, shift how I talk to people in school communities. Do I create an academy where I teach people about the same skills and then partner with them? Do I, like, there's ways I can think about that. If I'm going to do 40 properties, then what has to change in how I operate things? Okay, I can't be doing everything on my own. I have to put in certain systems of people and certain ways of hiring, right? It might be easier where I'm managing 40 communities across the United States and I only have to talk to 2 or 3 liaisons who deliver me information as they oversee 10 other people, and those 10 people oversee other people. And so rather than talking to 40 people the way I have to right now, I talk to like 3. And that type of switch in mindset on who you are, that makes the difference. And so to finalize the question, how do you go from 10 to 10x bigger, but with 10 times more peace? It's really this. You 10x your standards. When we talk about our identity and what identity actually means, people think of identity as this woo thing. Like they go, I don't know, who am I? Who am I? What am I? What do I mean? What's my purpose? No, forget about that. Very simple. It's your standards. Your identity is your standards. 10x your standards and just see what happens. You don't like your marriage? Okay, 10x your standards in your marriage. You will not talk to me that way. We will be going on dates this way. We will be talking about money this way. I'm tired of these talks about money this way. We are thinking through problems this way. And we're reducing the arguments and the problems we've had by 10x by doing this. 10x your partners. I'm done with playing small this way. I only want players that play this big. Who must I be to have players that run this big? I only want infrastructure that runs this big. I only dress a certain way. I only stay at certain places. If you start not accepting things at a level that is 10 times bigger than what you currently accept, just what would happen in your life, we are not honest with ourselves about the fact that we are consistently tolerating things that are not even at the level we want, let alone 10 times beyond what we want. And then we're surprised with our results thereafter.
Well, TJ, I just want to thank you for spending so much time with me. I think this is the longest podcast interview I've ever done, by the way, just so you know. So appreciate you having so much. Yeah.
Oh, that gives me chills. It's incredible.
But if people do want to follow along with what you're doing, where should they go? What should they do?
Oh, thank you. So the best place, start off on Instagram. We have most messages on Instagram. We're also on YouTube. Just put in Axe Decentralized Realtor or Axe D Real on Instagram, ACTS. Then D Real is like decentralized finance, but decentralized real estate. So DEREAL. So Axe D Real on Instagram, on YouTube. If you just put in Axe D Real on Google, I guarantee you we're going to show up. We're going to be on the website. You're going to be able to go at it. I recommend people join our school community. In the school community, I'm really going hard to show people the mistakes that I made for the last 5 years. Sure, I've had plenty of successes. I've also made plenty of mistakes. And the things that I go through in acquiring $4 million, $8 million, and $13 million properties are the same things other people go through when they're acquiring their parcel, whether it's 400,000, 800,000, 1.3 million, or even if you want to copy me, you want to do your own $13 million deals, go ahead, have at it. You're going to have access, no gatekeeping, to the things that we actually do. You can find out about how our processes work, how our systems work, how our mindset works. You can schedule a one-on-one call with me. Everybody who joins the school community, they have a free one-on-one call with me. Otherwise, it's like $5,000 an hour to have a call with me. But on it, you get to have that call. We're going to talk about your dreams, your hopes, your wishes, your obstacles, your setbacks, your identity, it's crazy, but what your parents think, what your spouse thinks, what your siblings think as you make a transition in this lifestyle. I believe that there are people who are the best in the world that like business content or motivational content. I believe that God shaped my life, shaped everything about my being, shaped my relationships. I was traumatized. I've been hurt, broken, bent over, re-put back together again and again and again. And I believe it's because God has placed me here on earth to help people live a life without regret on the land that they've always dreamed of. And I believe that I'm uniquely suited to help you do that. So anybody listening into this, please get on a call with me. I will never judge a person. I will talk to people who have no money to their name. And what a big property is a $65,000 purchase. I will give them just as much effort as I have when I've talked to literal celebrities, NBA champions, pop stars. You will get the same amount of effort, the same amount of focus, the same amount of love, the same amount of encouragement, the same amount of prophesying over you and your destiny to help you get to your end goal, because I want that for you.
Awesome. TJ, thanks again. It's great to talk to you. Great to know you. If people want to check out the show notes for this episode, you can go to retipster.com/283. We're going to have links to all the stuff that TJ just talked about, more summaries and things that we talked about. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for spending time with us. We will talk to you next time.
Thank you.